Yo, 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 welcome to Late Nights with B. This your boy, Brandon. I know we were supposed to have the tomorrow show tonight, but stuff came up, so we had to make some last-minute things. Thank you guys all for joining me tonight. We are talking all about horror comics. Got a stacked panel for you guys tonight. Some of the best people in the comic book community, some of the best-looking people in the comic book community when they're not wearing a New York Giants hat. But let's bring him out. He is the guy with the beard, one of my favorite people from Spine Ticks. You know, he's a pinnacle of our community, not Comic Tom. Roscoe! What's going on, brother? How you doing today?
I'm good, brother. Thank you so much. Yeah, I had to rep the team, though. You know that, right? We got a win finally.
You know what? My team's at the bottom of the freaking division. I can't stand it because it's the first time it's ever happened, and I don't know how to feel, you know? What's it like? What's it like, dude?
Hey, I don't know what it's like to be worse than the Browns, so I don't.
That's the whole AFC North this year is worse than the Browns. Believe me, I know we're talking horror comics, but this season is a horror fest for the
Yes.
But let's bring out our next guest. He dropped a video today with his new comic book day reviews. You guys have seen this guy buzzing all around the Pop Culture Philosophers crew, buzzing all over YouTube. Always collabing with my buddy Nick, collabing with Robbie. Let's introduce him, Verno. What's going on, brother? How's your day going?
What's going on? How we doing, guys?
Brother?
Thanks for having me on, man. I'm excited to be talking a little horror with you, man. This is cool.
Exactly, man. It's a great night for it. We're getting into spooky season, which is why I wanted to bring on the spookiest panel ever. You know, kind of they don't know what's gonna hit them. And let's bring out our last guest. He dropped another video today. Premiered, was fantastic. Was talking all about comic book covers. You guys know him as your bearded bro. He's just my brother to me. He's my big brother. Let's bring him out. Greg, what's going on, bro?
What's going on? It's funny, you guys were in the backstage. You guys were talking like Brandon's like, I don't know what it's like to be last in my division. I'm like, well, I'm usually last in that division because I'm a Bengals fan, so I know what it's like all the time. So, so I was like, I'm getting a little bit of like, whoo, I'm enjoy this ride for now. But we're not talking about the foosball. We're here talking about comics.
Exactly, man. We want to talk about football. We'll save that for Sundays when we're all ready to throw our knives or whatever at the TVs or food or phones. You know, it actually happened. It actually happened. One time we were playing the Bengals, right? It was back in my old house.
Oh, jeez.
And Ben threw a pick six, and it ended the game. My dad threw a knife through the couch.
I'm just so glad that I have a loose affiliation with that because of my team.
Just because. All right, but anyway, let's get into the chat. You guys know this is Whiplash Wednesday. We started with Nick over 11 a.m. with his Kid Dead's video with his LCS. And then we didn't have a Blame Fable show, but that's going to be the Blame Fable Tonight show coming to you guys sooner than you think. So stay tuned for that. We had chatting with the comic book community with Travis, talking with Jeremy, and they are 4 subs away from 900. So if I can get a mod to drop that below so we can get them to 900, let's do it, guys. Let's count it down tonight. And then we had, who was next? Oh, yeah, my show was next. I forgot. I was next with Missing Link. We were talking all about the books Brian Michael Bendis did before he moved over to DC. To help you guys out, if you're a newer reader, you want to get into some Bendis. He was the backbone of Marvel and wrote one of the best comic books, Ultimate Spider-Man, and the Omnibus is coming out soon. So definitely check that out. Check the rewind of that. It was a great show. And then we had, who was next? We had Big Herm recapping, who will be here shortly. He was recapping Nick Spencer's Spider-Man with his buddy Sam, so that was a great show. And now we're here. Nick also dropped another video at 5 o'clock that I have to go watch. What is going on, Travis Station, sir? What's going on, brother? Good to see you today. We got Stephen M. in the house. I can't do this like Phil. Comic Talk Weekly, he's the best at introducing the chat. What's going on, right, Stephen? Hope you're being here. Sheena, everyone's favorite hype guy. What's going on? Hope you're having a good day. We got Manny. What is going on, brother? Glad to be your substitute for the evening. Hope I can live up to your great show that you're always putting out. John Stout in the building. What is going on? We got the beautiful Miss Maria Reyes. What is going on? Station. And then we have Cindy in the house. What is going on? First time being here. Welcome to the kingdom. Welcome. And then we got Big Herm. Where you at, bro? Where you at? Finish eating. Get your ass over here. We got one of my favorite people. Wow. Bearded comic bro, an inspiration to us all. There he is.
Too kind. I'll Venmo you that $10. I promise you for saying that on there.
Nice. Dude, you're not supposed to say that. You know,
my bad.
This is Come on now, it's like ref ball. What's going on, brother Joe, the king of signatures? We got John's Comics with Kids, who has a show later tonight, which I will be catching the rewinds with White Whale Comics. Make sure you guys check it out. They're talking about books that came out. Probably what we're going to do too. And we got Fable in here. What is going on? And I believe we are all caught up. We're all caught up. Let's dive right into the month of October talking horror comics. What are some of your favorite horror comics that have come out this year or that are ongoing right now?
Ooh,
I mean, that's tough. But I'll just jump in and say it right off the bat. I mean, it's still going on this year. I mean, Philadelphia. I know we talked briefly backstage. That's been the most consistent horror comic book in my estimate. That is like, I feel like, and we'll get in other parts, but I felt like Something's Killing the Children went through a couple dips with their arcs and some of the other ones. But I feel like Philadelphia has been pretty consistently moving. And was it Jason Alexander?
Yes.
Sean Alexander?
Hell yeah.
His artwork, I've never seen an artwork complement a writing style of Rodney Barnes as beautifully as this does. Like, it's that scratchy, but not like Department of Truth. Like, you can still, like, yes, right there. See, Verno's going to be the good panel member and actually have visual aids.
I have it. It's right here. Good job, Verno.
It's a good one. That's one of the biggest ones that I'm bummed that I missed out. You know, I think I was reading it through like 12 issues, and then I missed 13 and I think 14, and I just fell behind, and now I'm like 5 or 6 behind. I've been picking the last few up, but yeah, I agree, man. It's one of the coolest, just conceptually, and it's probably my favorite current horror art. Like Sean Alexander, top notch for sure.
100%. I've really been enjoying it. I've been reading it in trade now. The second volume is a little bit backlog. What's a backlog, bro? I have no idea. No one knows what they are. But I really like the way that it looks. I really like kind of how they're capturing the grit of the setting and the different personalities going on. It's almost like it's a murder mystery with zombies. What's not to love? What's not to love about it? Roscoe, are you reading it, bro?
No, I am not. I missed the boat, and then there's just so many other things that I'm reading.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but I do have, no lie, I do have issue number 1, but I just never got around to it, and it kind of just sat back, you know. And then people were saying it was really cool and had a really gritty art style that was really like how you guys are saying. So I was like, oh, I got to get back on it. And then Scotty Young did a cover, and I was like, oh, because I'm a Scotty Young fan. But I saw a cover and I thought it was really cool. And so I was like, oh man, I should get into it. I ended up buying that cover and I was like, oh, I'm going to get into it. And then I totally didn't. I was reading 15 other things. So I was like, man. And I hear John's Comics with Kids talk about it all the time. And it just doesn't stick with me. I don't know why.
If John is talking positive about a comic book, then you know it's got to be good.
Right.
So yeah, I gotta get on this, man. I gotta get on this book.
John cuts books down like Game of Thrones was cutting cast members down like episode by episode.
Yeah, but what's funny is, and you can see this after Brandon's show because they'll be doing it tonight on White Whale's channel. He'll be like, I ranked that book like a 8.5 out of 10, but I'm gonna wait just because it didn't capture. I'm like, you're rating scales off of an 8.5, and you're like, I'm gonna wait though for the rest.
I don't know. I don't get it. You know, I think indies for me are easier to read in trade, especially when they kind of have those darker tones, just because it's easier, like, especially when they're monthly, man, because like you have to get to know newer characters you're not familiar with, kind of comprehend the plot. There's a lot going on in that first arc of an indie book, and reading it in one sitting or just like having pages to go back to, it helps. You know, you don't got to worry about damaging it. You don't got to worry about, okay, do I eat pizza with this one? Do I just eat a hoagie? You know, because there are certain lunch foods you can really eat and read at the same time with.
Not I, man.
I can't do that.
Yeah,
I can't.
I struggle to drink water and read. I will destroy things.
I struggle with reading, so no.
that's where these comes from.
One more thing on Philadelphia. This is every time I think about the series, I think about this. Dave from Comic Book Herald. I think the first creator interview that he ever did was with Rodney Barnes, the writer of Philadelphia. And he had mentioned that he had planned out then, they were like at issue 4 or 5 then, he planned out some crazy twist around issue 25 that he said would be either you hate it or you love it kind of a thing. So like I've been wanting to catch up because I've been curious for like a long ass time now. Like, what is this big crazy thing that he wants to reveal? especially because some people might hate it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Now I'm excited. I missed that, so I'm pumped for that.
Right. I'm definitely wanting to read the second trade. I know I have like 5 omnibuy that I'm just looking at right now that all have bookmarks in them. I'm just like, shit.
We had a ton of stuff that just we just look at and we go, I'm gonna get to you. One day.
I'm looking at it. Like I got Murder Falcon, Extremity, Undiscovered Country in there, Paper Girls. I'm just looking at Sweet Tooth is right there, the whole damn compendium, East of West, all 3 complete editions. They're just staring at me every time I go on stream.
Just knocked
Murder
them out.
Falcon, yes.
Just got this and I can't wait to read this.
Yeah. Daniel Warren Johnson is
that's what I thought it was. It looked like I think he's like the coolest artist doing comics, right? Especially like superhero. I'd love to see him on the Hulk or something like that, or just anything.
Beta Ray Bill. Beta Ray Bill was my favorite Marvel title this year. So
hands down.
Really good.
Yes.
I think I picked up the first 3 issues and they were just in my read pile and I never got to them, so I haven't actually read that yet. But
it connects to you, or like, I mean, I just feel like you feel the character, but the artwork's dope. I don't know. I know we're supposed to be talking about horror books, but I just had to say issue number 5 just was phenomenal of that series.
I'm all for talking about Scuttlebutt and Scourge and Pip. You don't see Pip the Troll very much, let alone Beta Ray Bill. What Daniel Warren Johnson did really well with Beta Ray is he played kind of off what Simonson established and kind of blended that with King in Black, and then just took the character in a way of his own and really just captured the emotion and then kind of like the depression of the character with his sense of adventure and crave, you know? Like there are a lot of times in Marvel we look at it, we say there are no stakes in comic books or in their books, right? And to an extent that's true, right? But in this book, like the stakes were pretty high. I really, really enjoyed it. And I know it's not a horror book, but it's not horrible, and you should go check it out.
No.
Zinger.
No. What's going on? Red Room. Is anyone reading Red Room? Because that book's just.
I got to issue number 2, and I couldn't go any further.
Fuck yes. It's like the best. It's like my favorite book, man. It's so good. It is so hardcore. This is because horror is like it's a broad term. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's all these subgenres in it. It's your torture porn, but it's the best. I don't really like torture porn necessarily. I don't even like the term, but I like that book.
But it's my favorite book.
Right.
I'm crossing my legs after that.
It is. It's surprisingly well written for how like gory and like clearly like trying to be shocking. You know what I mean? With the content and just the concepts. But the art is top notch. It's one of the coolest books out there. And each issue, you could jump on and just read any issue. They're all kind of a standalone that are building on a larger story. But it's cool. It's one of the coolest books out there, I think.
Right on, man.
I picked up the free comic book day issue, and I haven't, just because I could, because it was free.
Right.
I have not dug into that series yet, and you're not selling it for me because I'm like, oh no.
Right. It's gory. It's super duper gory. You know what it's about? It's about online snuff films and like the industry behind it. And like so like one issue will focus on like the murderers, another issue will focus in on different sections of the world, like the business aspect. It's really cool, man.
I'll have to check it out one day when you stop calling it
torture porn.
I don't know.
That's what they call it, though.
Yeah, I was gonna say you never heard the term. It's out there. I didn't invent it.
Hey,
Verno, my legs are crossed for the rest of the night.
Verno, I gotta ask you, brother. Do you think it would be better if it was just because it's only black and white interior? I don't know if anyone knows that, but do you think it'd be better if it was black, white, and red?
It's funny because I remember thinking this right off the bat. I mean, would I like it? Yes, it would probably be dope. But it's almost because it's so violent and there's so much gore. The black and white just kind of it just tames it a little bit and it makes it a little more palpable, kind of. And it's like, and it's just like, I know this is crazy because of what it looks like, but it's like classy. There's something about cross hatching and just really nice inking. It's like it's got a classic look to it. And the dude, he's a genius artist. Ed Piskor.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
From Pittsburgh. From the best
city
ever.
Is he?
Yeah, he's from
Pittsburgh. Now you're really not selling it for me. Well, it's funny. Fable just said in the chat that the last horror book he read was Red Mother that he liked.
Fuck yeah.
Jeremy Hahn. And I don't know, did any of you guys hop on Jeremy Hahn's Kickstarter he just did? So, and that's why I'm bringing it up. So it's called Hauntology. And you can still go pick it up on the backer kit. So if you go to Kickstarter, but yeah, it's a 144 page hardcover anthology book, and they're just like 2-page short stories of just different horror aspects. So it's a very wide range. It's funny. I hopped on, he was on the Comic Burrito show and they asked me to hop on to help interview. And so like, I got to read half of the book and I'm reading it. I didn't even put 2 and 2 together that he was the author of Red Mother till halfway through the interview. And I'm like, oh, I have read your stuff.
I got questions for you now that we like understand each other.
But I'm excited for that one, I think. And so if Fable was a fan of Red Mother, then he might want to check that out. So
I loved Red Mother. That was a really cool book.
Right.
Unique.
Yep.
Right. And that's the thing about horror books is that they're very unique. Like it's becoming, I kind of noticed horror books have kind of been the kind of fad of indie books, you know, especially like horror anthologies, which we're probably going to get into. I'm not big on anthologies. Like I just started reading Ice Cream Man. I kind of slept on it. Like, you know, I'm really the type of reader when people's like, this is great, but you don't need to know anything beforehand. I'm like, okay. Like I'll get to it now. Now it's like you just put it on 5 back burners and I'm in the pad. But did anyone else read Haha or Ice Cream Man? Because I know a lot. Haha, something like that. Did anybody read any of those, or even are reading Silver Coin right now? I kind of want to open the floor to talk about these anthology stories a little bit.
I dabbled in them.
Dabbled.
I was late into the Ice Cream Man game too.
Yeah.
I remember picking that up, Ice Cream Man 1 on the shelf, going, I don't think I'd like this. Put it back down. And I'm going, dag nabbit. Again, this is why I don't spec. Because I'm like, and I tried to get some. There's some issues of Ice Cream Man that I liked, but overall, it just wasn't the style for me when it came to the type of comics I like and reading. And I tried to hop in on Haha, and I did about 3 issues, and they kept just going down in my likability for them. And so I hopped off after issue 3, I think it was, on Haha. And I was the same way with Silver Coin. I read issue 1 and it felt like just a cliche of like, oh, a bad person does something to sell their soul for the coin. And then, oh, okay, now someone else is going to get it and it's going to ruin their life. And I was just like, I don't know. So like I'm hit or miss with anthologies. So kind of like what Brandon was saying, because it's hard to get invested in the characters when, especially these anthologies, like I'm not really vibing the vibe of Silver Coin where it flipped right off the bat, but some of them work with different writers and different
writers. I think a book that works really well, it's not horror, but they're kind of making it a little bit darker, is the Deadpool Anthology. And I didn't think again? The Deadpool Anthology series.
Okay.
I think that works. You have like James Skokie doing a Paniud, Will Spartasio, good friend of the show, doing a book with that with who is he doing it with? I can't remember, but it looked great, you know, looked better than one of his good friends, Rob Liefeld's, ever done with the character. So that works. Daniel Warren Johnson did a segment in there, you know, and it was kind of, it was light enough to where you didn't need to actually invest yourself in a Deadpool, and the gimmicks weren't so taking over the book because you had to have some sort of plot. So like you had like 1 or 2 gimmicks, but it was a lot of plot. There was a lot of gore to it because like the coloring in there. So I really liked it. The Wolverine, Black, White, and Blood, I enjoyed. I thought that was a pretty gritty. These aren't really horror, but anything gritty, I kind of throw it in that kind of horror category just in my brain. Just because, like, if I'm a 10-year-old kid or younger, I could see this being a little scary, especially when there's blood everywhere. So
there's a lot of horror aspects in different superhero. Like Batman's got plenty of like horror vibing villains and stuff like that for sure.
Right.
I mean, yeah, you could even say, I'm not going to say that it's one that you want to classify, but you could say Fear State, you know, because of Scarecrow's character, like you said, is a horror villain aspect. A lot of Scarecrow arcs fall into that category. And that's what I think, Verno, you were saying earlier on the show. Horror is such a wide variety, right? You can go from suspense, you can go from, you know, just, you know, as you say, torture porn to, you know, to the supernatural aspect, which we talked about zombies. You know, we talked about historical vampires. Actually, we haven't talked about zombies, but you know,
we'll get to them.
We'll get to that. But then you have like monsters, and then you have, you know, paranormal activity stuff. Like there's just such a wide variety, which is why I think horror is so divisive that I think Brandon and I both have said, like, we don't like horror. And then people are like, oh, well, what about something's going to like, oh, well, yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that's horror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That's really interesting because authors or writers and even artists use different techniques to establish different horror elements. So I don't really think you can say there is a specific horror book, you know, like Philadelphia. Yeah, you can kind of see because there's Philadelphia, there's zombies in it, there's vampires in it. But then you get a book like Moonshine, which establishes kind of the unknown, and it uses that kind of negative space to its advantage in that horror elements to establish that, you know. And if you guys have not read Moonshine, read the first 2 volumes and then stop the same year Azzarello started Batman Damned, and then just don't touch it again. And then you have something like Once and Future, which plays off of like kind of coming back from the dead, that kind of genre. But yeah, there really is no way. I guess it's subjective for like different themes.
Because even Once and Future is more like the monsters aspect.
Right.
Like I would never have classified Once and Future as a horror comic. But if I'm going to classify Philadelphia, I mean, you talk about some of those scenes in Once and Future with Granny, that she's like taking a chainsaw to monsters. Like, okay, that's horror. What do you like? It just is what category of horror there's so many subcategories.
Right.
Exactly.
So Roscoe, how would you kind of classify horror, or what would you say different artists or different writers achieve better in their horror books?
Well, I mean, like you guys said, it's so diverse. I mean, you know, you can have anyone do anything. Like, I mean, but I mean, I love James IV, man.
Yeah,
I love what
man.
he does. I mean, like, I'm such a big Something Is Killing the Children fan, and my read of the week last week was the latest issue, and
Yes.
I think that was phenomenal. And just to let y'all know, we're going to be seeing Something Is Killing the Children on the shelves for a very, very long time. But it's just, I mean, you can go any aspect, like, you know, and some of these guys, like Colin Bunn, is now just tearing it up with a lot of books.
Is great.
All right, I mean, and that's the thing. It's like, and then DC, you know, Nice House on the Lake is technically what, a DC horror book, is it not? Isn't that like what it's classified as?
They're not really calling it horror because it's like creator owned, but it's horror. It's in the horror.
Right.
Yeah, it's that genre though that they made was DC horror, right? Or am I wrong?
It's Black Label. But...
It's Black Label.
Oh, Black Label.
But it's horror.
Black Label, but it still is horror,
Right.
in my opinion. Like it would be classified in a horror because there are some Black Label books that are horror books. Because I believe Basket Full of Heads wasn't that Black Label.
That was Hill House Comics.
Hill House.
The Hill House.
Now,
That was
that's another
comic
bit.
that Roscoe's talking about.
Right.
Okay.
That's another bit that I do want to touch on because those books were
coming-
underrated.
They're coming back too.
Yeah.
Did you see
They
what's
are.
it? Refrigerator Full of Heads or something?
Yeah.
Hells
like
yeah.
that?
Yeah. Hell
Yeah,
yeah.
so-
I'm here for it. You know.
Mhm.
Refrigerator full
Did you
of
guys
heads.
read the Lolo Woods?
The
one I
read the
missed.
first issues.
I didn't.
I
was-
love Plunge. Plunge was my
Dude, that was
favorite.
bizarre.
Which one? Plunge?
Plunge.
I didn't.
Oh, Plunge! I didn't read.
Stuart
that one.
Immonen did the artwork.
Mhm.
Dave Stewart did the colors.
That was the one that
Okay.
threw me off a bit. It was cool though, but that was honestly when I was really just kind of dipping my toes into horror. But I did want to, like, back to your question earlier about the anthologies. This was one that, and again, this is when I was just kind of getting into horror books. And
Yeah.
there's a volume 2 of this coming out, Hotel, with an extra L on it, and it was right when AWA was starting.
Mhm.
And for me, kind of like what you were saying with Silver Coin, I read everything that they did for Silver Coin. I loved that first issue, so I don't know what you're smoking, bearded bro, but that first issue was on fire. But or I don't know, if you're not, then I'll send you something to smoke and you will enjoy it more.
Then I'll enjoy it a lot more. That was probably my problem.
But Hotel was cool. Like I'm kind of a sucker for those little. It's gimmicky, but I like to be like, oh, this happened in this one, and it has to do with that one. And oh shit, they're tying it together. Like if they do that and it's at all entertaining, then I'm a sucker for it and I'll eat it up. And Hotel was really good at that, and it did it in a way where you didn't know. You're like, maybe they're not going to tie together. I guess they're not. Then like, oh wait, they are. And it kind of all. Did any of you guys read that?
No.
No,
It's solid, man.
I
Yeah.
did, but Verno, you still have to send me stuff because I did not enjoy it. I read all 4. It was 4
Okay.
issues, right?
Right.
So I
And
read
dude-
the whole thing. It was. I think the tying it together at the end lost me a little bit more. And it's one of those tough. There's with anthologies. I feel like when it's an anthology, like so anthology on an ongoing series is different from like an anthology like this. It's another Kickstarter horror anthology, Nightmare Theater. which was an awesome one.
Right.
But there's a difference, I think, when you're going anthology for the most part of if you get a bad issue or two or one that doesn't hit as well as the first one, it's a lot easier to go, well, I'm not going to hop on it because the issue that you liked isn't necessarily like it's not going to be told the same story. And so like that's where Hotel lost it for me a little bit. Was the first story I think punched really well, and then the other one's kind of tapered off.
That is interesting because a lot of times writers who dabble in horror get too carried away with the genre and the cool effects in the book, but really what drives horror is the narrative and kind of like what's next to come. You know, it's that thrill for me that as a reader I look for in a horror book. We are going to talk about Something is Killing the Children, which I'd love to get back to. I just want to talk about this real quick that Eric posed. Why do they get rid of Vertigo? Because all of these books feel very Vertigo-esque. You know, Rom v. Swamp Thing feels very Vertigo-esque. But I was a newer reader when Vertigo ended. And I started reading like Hex Wives and what was the thing that Robbie Rodriguez was doing? I think it was Hex Wives, but it didn't really feel Vertigo-y. It really didn't. You know, you had American Carnage, that was the Venditti book, and then you had Brian Hill. No, it was Venditti was doing a thing with Eddie Barrows about like whatever his name, some American thing, and then you had Brian Hill doing another thing, but they canceled it, and then they started Black Label, but they didn't know what to do with Black Label, so like, oh yeah, we can tell Dark Batman story, so it's gonna be the Bat Label for 2 years, and then we're gonna fire the guy, and then we're gonna have better. But Bearded, were you reading? You because I know you're probably like the longest reader here. What was kind of your thing with?
Well, that's an old man joke right there.
No, actually,
the
oldest guy here.
Surprisingly, I'm not probably the oldest reader here. What I mean by that is I got out of I read comics all the time when I was a kid, and then I got out of it because of high school and stuff like that. And then I went to a comic store in college, and I got really turned off by the comic store there, and so I just quit reading.
Right.
So I didn't actually start to read until about 2018. So Vertigo was already done by the time I got back into reading comics. So you actually are more consistently probably an older comic book reader than I am, Brandon.
Same here.
I mean, when I just started reading, I couldn't really afford to buy books. Like I read digitally for a long time. So like my first 2 years of reading, and then I just started, because that's how I like got to read everything in the Bronze Age, Silver, and work my way up. Like I was reading current, and I was also reading like when it first happened. That was kind of like my backstory. So once I got to Vertigo, I still need to go to Vertigo and kind of like read Fables, read Preacher. I still need to read. I still need to read a lot of like those books. But I like
is Fables Vertigo?
I think so. I still need to read like
I'm
Animal
currently
Man and
going
all
through
that
Fables
stuff.
right now, so that's one I'm going into right now.
But
so.
Fit, if you were to read DC comic regularly again, A Nice House on the Lake is great. And then I would also read Nightwing. I would say those are really my top two picks right now. See you, JT. Much love. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you to everybody who's stopping by today. I know we got people going in and out. Wednesdays are busy for everybody. We got family, got everything. So I appreciate the time. You guys hear the chats popping, talking about books, and that's exactly what I love to see. Let's bring up my man who had a show today. I love this guy half to death. I don't see him enough because of his crazy work schedule. Let's bring him out. Big Herminio!
What up, bro?
Station guys, what's going on, fellas? How you doing?
Herm, you looked so cheerful for the events of last night, man. I'm kidding. I love you, Herm.
You know what? People challenge me. Where's your Yankee hat? I was doing a Spider-Man show, so I wore my Spider-Man hat. You know, my Tokidoki Spider-Man hat. Someone, oh, where's your Yankee hat? It's right here, motherfucker. It's right here, all right?
Herm, it is so
win, lose, or draw.
It is so good to see you, my brother. What is your favorite horror comic, bro?
Man, I Something's Killing Children is an easy one. So
Awesome.
So I'll put that aside for a second. You know what I mean? That's a real easy one.
Well, yeah, we're actually
Maniac of New York.
I knew you were gonna say that, bro. Herm, I knew you were gonna say that, bro.
You know what I'm saying? That's my favorite one. There's not much to say about it. It's a slasher. It's Jason, but you know, that's my favorite one.
So is it only because it's Maniac in New York? Like if it was Maniac in Tampa Bay, Florida, would you not like it as much?
Yeah, I probably would have never picked it up. I'll be honest. You know?
Yeah, Roscoe, we need catfish for Matt Woods. Congratulations to Big Matt Woods on 1K, everybody. If you're not subbed to Matt Woods, let's get him on to drop that link. Let's get him to 5K tonight. You guys know how we roll.
Does he really want to see the catfish? Do you really want me to put the catfish?
We don't want to. No, see, Roscoe. See, the catfish belongs on Spy Ticks. Saturdays are Spy Ticks. A cat sack, whatever's going on in there is for Spy Ticks. We're talking about Something Is Killing the Children. I want to go back to that because that book is such an interesting tale. I know Roscoe was saying that was his pick of the week last week, where. Yep. And a lot of people thought that was a very boring issue because there's.
Oh, I want names.
Yeah, Vernal, right? send them some stuff because I'm with Vernal on this one. Who said that? Because last week was my pick of the week, one of my picks of the week too.
Me too.
It was one of my picks. It was one of my picks of the week. What's going on, Jason? In here, what's going on, brother?
Was it you? You're really quiet.
No,
Herm.
but it was.
I haven't read that one yet. That's why I'm quiet. I'm like, damn it! I haven't read.
I kind of saw it in the PCP chat, and I kind of saw it. And it's a few other streams, and people were saying it's kind of a lull issue, but it was setting up House of Slaughter, and we got like some of the backstories on the different masks, and I think a lot of times, right, people look at books that kind of have that patience, right? Something Is Killing the Children. You need a lot of patience to really read, because some issues you'll just have people just talking, and that's really been this whole arc so far is people talking, and that's when you get a lot of the great character moments and elevation in these characters. Tynan is kind of using kind of like the age of these children, but also like the boldness of the main character of Erica to really tell this story, and you really don't know, and it looks very cinematic. Like this book looks like when you flip over to the Something Is Killing the Children, it's so investing, and it reads great in single issues, reads great in trade. What are you guys kind of enjoying about this book? I'd love to hear it.
I think this last issue is going to be a major issue, a major key issue, and a lot of people aren't even talking about that. I mean, I know I'm specking right now, but for real, I think a lot of people are not. But no, I love this book. I mean, I've loved it since day one. I picked this like we were talking backstage when Bearded said it was this or Once and Future came out at the same time. I ended up going with Something Is Killing the Children. I thought it was a weird title to have for a book, and I was just getting into indie, honestly, I think one of the first indies before that. I know it's weird, but Shirtless Bear Fighter is what really got me into indie books.
Such a good book.
And so I was like, what? There's weird books like this other than like Marvel and DC, because so I saw that, and I was like, man, this is trippy. So I've loved it ever since. I mean, you can't go wrong with monsters, and and the way with their soul is encaptured into these, the souls of their monsters and captured into their trinkets, and it's cool, man. I think it's really cool. It's a unique story. Just James the Fourth, man, he's unreal. I mean, it's unbelievable what he's doing.
Right. I mean, he's pulling a lot of different elements of horror and all across all of his books, all of them.
Yeah, I mean, like he's even doing like I mean, there's Wind too. I mean, like the man's doing so many different books that it's just like, gosh, it's unreal. But yeah, I'm sorry.
Thinks that the worst one of his is Batman.
Well, see, Batman was a side gig. Batman's a side gig, and there are only so many writers today that can say, "Hey, look, I was brought on as an interim writer."
I mean, that's exactly what it is. Batman allowed him to do these other books even more so.
Right. But I mean, he was already writing these, and then Batman came along, and I think like his fan fiction for Batman just turned into a reality, just because they didn't really have a whole lot of time getting out of 5G, which I've kind of been speaking about. I spoke about it a lot longer, like a while back ago on the channel. You guys can probably find that in one of the videos if you want to go backlog this, which you have no reason not to. Creators Corner is not all we do here, but I really did enjoy his Batman for the most part. I thought some was hit or miss, but the fact that you're able to have so many solid books, while Batman may not be as groundbreaking as, let's say, Court of Owls, or even like what Morrison did in their adventure on Batman, or even like kind of the stuff that Tom King was introducing to Bruce Wayne as a character, this book was always solid. Like there wasn't an issue that I looked at and said it was jarring to get through, and you're still putting out work across the board. That's impressive. That's impressive. No other writer out there was working as hard as James Tynion at that time.
His stuff is unreal, though.
Mhm.
You know, it just gets taken for granted. Fable asks, is the new Arkham City book some sort of horror?
Oh,
It kind
yeah.
of feels, it feels dark. Verno, I know you read it. I've
Dude,
yet to get to it.
That's next on my list right now. I just keep hearing. I don't read a lot of DC, to be honest with you. But that book, for some reason, it kind of spoke to me. I saw the little gang that they have, and I was like, "This is kind of weird. I'd like to see this little group here." And so, but that's next on. I'm gonna actually read that when I get off the air with you guys today.
Yeah,
it's one I need to read it again. It's like it's weird, you know what I mean? It's Dan Waters, and they're introducing a bunch of weird characters. I enjoyed it, but it's odd, you know what I mean? And it's strangely structured, and even the art. Like I went into it knowing how much. Like I wasn't familiar with Danny.
Danny is one of the nicest people I've ever met. She's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, her art.
Well, you can.
I was gonna be a dick and say her art sucked. No, I actually like it, but it's really weird. I went into it just hearing Robbie rave about Danny's art and all this, and it just struck me as like, I wasn't expecting this. It's very
it's soft,
it's very very gritty,
toned. It's
cool,
very toned. But you can tell her that when her and Dan are going to be on the show on Tuesday. They rescheduled from Saturday to Tuesday. So that's going to be at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Should I invest in Substack? No, because a lot of it's going to be hit or miss, and Substack I don't think is going to have a good longevity thing. I think it's more of creators kind of escaping to venture off into their own thing later on. But
so far I'm disappointed.
I think people should just see what people review, the people who do have it, and see if that's what they want. Because if you're going in blind, you might not be happy. Spend all that money, you know.
Right. So far, I'm not super pleased. I did I almost said the Tickman, the Hickman and the Tynion.
The Titman.
Tynion's book, we're getting 10 pages every 2 weeks, and so far it just hasn't. It's pretty disappointing. Hickman didn't put out a book last month. He skipped a whole month in between stuff and just a bunch of articles, and this is how we're world building, and it's like okay. And all he put out originally was 8 pages. Or it was like 6 pages. Yeah. So, but having said that, they're both.
Robbie warned you though. Robbie knew that. You should have just listened to Robbie.
Well, I'll tell you this though. They're both like, you can tell they're working on it. Like they're taking it seriously. Hickman's like, hey, we're trying this now. Do you guys like this? Does this still suck? All right, hold on. Let me try this. So they're working on it. You can really tell they just got all this money dumped on them. They're like, okay, yes, let's do it. And then they kind of are figuring it out as they go.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's all gonna get collected. Everything that's coming out, like say Comixology Originals that Scott Snyder is doing. All of this is you can wait, right? That you can honestly wait on these. Substack is just a way for writers to kind of like screw you guys, screw you Big Two. I kind of see it as they're like the U.S. or like the 13 colonies getting away from Great Britain, which is the Big Two, and they're like being saucy teenagers about it. But they're gonna go back.
Well, it's not like
that's kind of that's really
none of them left. None of them left. Like, look how many Tynion books we're talking about. Like Hickman already barely does comic books. It's like, you know what I mean? He rarely puts one out. Well, I'm just saying. I mean, compared to most writers, like look at Cullen Bunn and his productivity level, or even Al Ewing, just a lot of people. It's like they're usually writing 3 books at a time. Hickman, you get a book every couple months.
You want to talk about horror books? Immortal Hulk.
Hell yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
That's the best example of a Marvel, like a superhero. That's the most horror-y superhero book that's running. Yeah. I think so.
Hands down, bro.
Oh, yeah.
And the biggest part of what makes things horror is the art. If you had a different artist on there, it might not feel so horrifying. You know what I mean?
Right. No matter what you think about Joe Bennett, Joe Bennett actually sent me the original pencils that he did of the Immortal She-Hulk cover. This is before I learned that he doesn't like a whole lot of people out there in the world. Just to say it lightly.
You don't know that. You don't know that. Has he ever said that? He never said that.
There's a lot of stuff because it wasn't just Al Ewing that came out against it. But anyway, that's not a hero there.
I would be more excited about a Joe Bennett if you told me like, hey, there's this comic book, Joe Bennett's doing the art, or if you told me, hey, there's this comic book, Al Ewing's writing it. I'm way more excited about the Joe Bennett book. And that's just, I could separate all that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I separate the whole thing. You realize Marvel didn't stand up and do anything until issue 50 was done of Immortal Hulk, because they know that too,
Right. I don't know. I'm a big Al Ewing fan. I've kind of followed him since I started reading. His Ultimates is one of my favorite books. I think my buddy Jason, I was just talking about that with him. They're just Al Ewing is that kind of writer that takes concepts, sci-fi concepts that are like it's so out there. Like, well, what if this happened? You're like, well, that would never happen. Al Ewing's like, watch me, and he'll do it. You know, like he made Galactus a freaking life bringer. He put eternity in chains, like they were locked up. So I just think he brings a lot of cool concepts to the table, which is why I'm excited for how he's gonna use the Maker in his Venom run. Because he teased him, if you guys are paying attention, the Maker was there, and that's so interesting to see what he does because he's given the Maker a lot of attention with what he did with the Ultimate Universe.
Well, he's doing it with V,
Ron
right?
V.
Ron V. Yeah,
Ron V's writing the Dylan Brock story. So Ron V's writing little kid Dylan growing up, becoming Venom, and then because it was supposed to happen. If you guys watched the interview with Ron V that we did here, he was talking about how Donny Cates wanted him to be the next writer of Venom, but Ron V, because he's a newer reader and a newer writer, he's like, I don't know the history of Venom like a lot of other people do.
It's going to be like a separate issue, like how what DC was doing with the whole.
That's a good question. I think we're going to find that out once we read it because they're co-writing it. So one is going to feel more Al Ewing heavy when we're dealing with Eddie Brock, and the other one's going to feel more Dylan Brock heavy when we're on Earth.
Yeah, because DC was doing that.
It's a weird way to do it. It's cool though.
But you know, if it works, I'm here for it. I think it's kind of a thing we haven't seen in a while where we get that kind of collaboration project, you know. And then Matt Woods has asked a James Tynion question a couple months ago when the news broke about him in Substack. I asked if his books would see print. He said all of his Substack books will eventually go to print. And then I think it will. I think everything you're seeing digitally, there's still such a great market for printed comics, and COVID proved that, how trade paperbacks sold through the roof. LCSs were better off returning from COVID with more subscribers, more people getting their pull list rather than before COVID. You know, COVID got people reading. So I think print comics are here to stay. Look at what DC announced when they fired everyone. We're only going to keep 5 printed books. Now they have 20,000. So they're here to stay. What's going on, Brian? But yeah, we were talking about all of that. Another book that I do want to talk about. Well, Sheena mentioned it earlier, so big shout out to Sheena. Gideon Falls. Did anybody read Gideon Falls?
I did not.
No, what was it? Sorry, bro.
Gideon Falls.
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
Hell yeah.
Just ordered the hardcover.
Yes, sir. I pre-ordered that. I pre-ordered it. I read the first volume digitally, and I was like, we're not doing this. We're waiting.
That one's a great example of like, you have to really think about like, oh yeah, it is horror. And that's a big one that it's like a lot of the art is what makes it horror. It's a sci-fi time traveling, dimension jumping kind of a book that just has some horror elements more in the art than anything else. Just, right. I mean, like, you know, yeah. With the
it monsters. Also has a pretty good play on like kind of real life and religion as well. I think a lot of it because in religious texts, whether you are a heavy religious person or you practice more than others, religion can have a lot of horror effects. You know, when you're talking about the devil, when you're talking about your relationship with God or that higher being, you're talking about what you did, right? You can get lost in your thoughts, and that can create horror. You can create your own horror. And I think that's something that Jeff Lemire captured really well in that book, and how the main character, the pastor or the father, created his horror when he moved to Gideon Falls.
Did anyone, speaking of Jeff Lemire, did anyone read Puzzle Book?
No, I slept.
Maze Book.
Or Maze Book. I'm sorry,
yeah.
Maze Book.
Well, there's Puzzle Box too, but the Maze Book is Jeff Lemire.
Right.
That was my bad.
It's like Maze Book. I think issue 2 comes out next week, and it's like the most depressing book you'll ever read. It's about this dude whose daughter died. Oh, you read it? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I really, really liked it, but it's not what I. It's like you feel that book, and I don't even have kids. But if I had kids, it would be even tougher. It's a tough
same
book.
Here, man. Same here, brother. Yeah, that was a real like deep book. I mean, like, but the thing is that like it was a very for being like what was it, 80 pages? It was a huge first issue. It was really long, but it flew by because there's not much dialogue or text in the book. So you could fly through that book, but still, that was a real dark. That's a dark book too, man.
Right?
Because like how you're talking about like horror books. I mean, this could be a horror for someone who has
Right.
A little girl, you know. So that's why I wanted to touch on that with Jeff Lemire, because this is a dark book, you know,
Right.
and I can't wait for the next issue. So,
Me too, man.
Right. Yeah, Jeff Lemire, he's a very good. What else has he done that's kind of horror? He's kind of dabbled in a little bit of everything. I'm not really too well versed with Jeff Lemire on the indie side of things. If someone else has, don't look at me like that, Greg. I still haven't read Sweet Tooth yet.
Yeah, but that's not horror.
No.
He did what am I blanking on it? He did Descender, and that's more sci-fi.
Yeah.
He did Descender and Ascender.
What else has he done? He is. I know he's putting out a lot of projects nowadays.
I'm wondering if his new because his Black Label, the new Swamp Thing he's going to do, if that's going to be because he's writing it.
Mankey.
Doug Mankey.
Mankey's on art, and then I'm blanking. I just had the colorist on my channel.
Dave Stewart?
No, Bourne.
If you'd have got David Stewart,
Right.
No, Bourne.
Dave Bourne.
That looks.
He did all the coloring for like Killing Joke and stuff like not Killing Joke, Joker Who Laughs and stuff like that.
Nice.
Well, the Killing Joke that could also be classified. I would put it under a horror category.
Mm-hmm. It's a psychological thriller.
It's a psychological thriller, you know. But yeah, even Batman can create a lot of horror. Now, a book when we did mention Jeff Lemire and you did say Swamp Thing, my brain immediately went to Joker, The Killer Smile, which was a great book. That I don't know if anyone read it, but it's the same team with Andreas Sorrento, or Sorrentino, however you pronounce that name. I apologize, but that book is great because it really played. It was very much like the Joker movie that we saw, and kind of that kind of horror, and like it really just how Joker sees the world, you know, as like very lighthearted, very funny, but does the most ridiculous things and thinks of it as kind of like a comedy, right? It's like kind of like a horror comedy, I would say. Was that the one where the story was like there's a guy like who worked at Arkham that like yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's that is a problem. I mean, I'm not one to always be like, there's so many Joker books, but I mean, good golly, there are so many Joker
yeah,
books.
there are, you know, and then you also have the one Azzarello did with Lee Bermejo, you know, you have Joker Harley Criminal Sanity, you have what other Joker books are there? We just named like 3 that came out in the past year. There are so many. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Verno.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Verno's here, guys. Verno is the man.
I got books everywhere. I got visual references. What do we need?
What do we need?
It's a mess. It's a mess.
Do you still have any of that torture porn? No.
Oh my god, piled up in the corner.
Just don't show any panels from what is it, that Scout comic, Cherry Blackbird or whatever.
Oh, I didn't see that.
I'm glad that John came in just for that part. Yeah.
Should I open it?
No.
Dude, you should see. Did anybody read the last book you'll ever read? Which there was a commenter earlier.
Yes.
He did make a great point. That book, it promised deeper themes in the first issue. I thought it was going to be very deep, and it just totally kind of abandoned that so far.
Issue 3 just came out today, right?
Yes, and I liked it. I liked issue 3. It was
I haven't gotten to it yet. I haven't picked up my books yet today.
The Me You Love in the Dark. We talking about that one?
No, we haven't talked about that. We're talking about the last thing you'll ever read.
Last book you'll ever read.
Yeah. I didn't get on that.
I would hate for that.
That's that was. I love the concept. I don't think. Well, when I'm trying to remember back to my first issue I read, because that's the one where it's the ladies going around on a book tour.
Yes.
And everyone that reads it is like going like insane and trying to kill her or having
they kind of led us to believe it was going to be this like metaphor for how art can affect the real world kind of a thing, and how this dude's book is changing reality, or how the media can maybe influence us. But then it's like, no, let's just show a bunch of penises and breasts.
I think issue 2 found its groove a little bit better. And so if you liked issue 3, I'm hoping that continues. I feel like issue 1 I wanted to like it more, but it felt like it didn't know what it wanted to do.
I liked it way more than issue 2. Issue 2 is where they kind of lost me a little bit for sure. I thought issue 1 was interesting, but all they were doing was presenting you with the idea, which is kind of I mean, I couldn't do it, but I assume it's easier to. Issue 2s are hard to do, it seems, because you've established the idea in the first issue and you've introduced us to the characters, which is kind of easier to do. You know what I mean? That's why every Marvel movie is an origin story. And then issue 2, you got to deliver on something.
Right.
Here's some of that classy torture porn art.
Oh,
by the way.
Yes. Okay.
That's
So,
good, man. Good.
Roscoe, that makes your drawing look amazing, by the way.
Hey, thanks.
So here's my question for you guys. So a lot of times, and when we all started getting into comics, I think it was very obvious that when we read a book, it was like the best thing ever, right? I think I started halfway through the Dan Slott Spider-Man run, and then I read something better. I was like, oh wait, and now I know what a good Spider-Man book's like, you know? Now that we have so much horror, do you think when we look back 5 years ago, we're gonna view stories differently? If so, like which ones do you think we will look at and enjoy less in hindsight?
I just think it's a good point. I was going to say earlier, like talking about Hotel, when I reviewed that book and when I read it, I had just really got into new comics. So I'm curious to see if I reread it now, how I would feel about it. Because you're totally right. Like it's easier to blow your mind when you don't know as much. But and that's why there's so many negative comic book content creators, you know what I mean? When you look at people that make it their life and you get sick of comic books and you start to see the flaws in everything more and then kind of focus on that, which is what I'm trying to avoid doing. But
that's why you review statues. And I'm
I think it's to go off your point, Verno. I think it's important for us as content consumers to keep in mind that, you know, it's okay to have a steak dinner. You know, it's okay to have Burger King sometimes. Like, it's okay to have it, you know.
Say Taco Bell. Say Taco Bell.
Taco Bell. What else? You know, but you know, I bring this up, you know, because Joel Schumacher mentioned it one time. Like, sometimes you just want a McDonald's Big Mac, and it's not good. You know what you're getting, but it does its job. And I think as we can remember that, it's important for us to, like, not everything's going to be up at the tier of something like, you know, take whatever great comic book grail you want to say, like it's not going to be at that level. And when we do that and nitpick at it to get it to this level, like, you know, I think we do that with movies so often, and we're starting to see that happen a lot more with comics.
Now, speaking of snacks, my favorite snack, newest member of Comics Kings, we did add this guy into the fold. My favorite snack, my favorite Taco Bell dinner, missing Link. How are you doing? Just segueing into all of that. How long were you backstage? Did you just get backstage? Like, I didn't even see you. I had to scroll down.
Yeah, it was like a minute.
He was messaging us in the private. He's like, I'm just going to leave him back there the whole time.
Like, until we brought up Big Macs, and I'm like, oh, Link. What's going on? Like, what is your favorite horror? What is your favorite horror comic that has been coming out? Or like you've read?
It's kind of older, but Empire. I think that was pretty scary. That was pretty. No, I'm just kidding. Another old one, but
no, I said horror books, not books that you thought were horror, not books you thought were horrible.
No, the thumbnail. I really enjoyed that. That was older, but
just
Herm said already. I was a big fan of Maniac in New York, but Bunny Mask wasn't exactly horror, but it was horror-esque. I enjoyed that a lot.
I think it was. Yeah, I think it's a horror.
Yep.
It's got horror covers, that's for sure.
Yeah, she's like a horror superhero. Has anyone ever read Simon Dark?
No.
Which one?
Simon Dark. It's like a Steve Niles book for DC, and it was like a Frankenstein type of like a supernatural superhero. It's kind of giving me those vibes.
Nice.
Why is Greg at a horror show? He'd be a better fit on an X-Men show.
It's funny because I always am like, I don't read horror comics, and Brandon's like, hey, you want to be on a horror comic show? I'm like,
I don't read horror comics. I don't read horror comics. Like something that's horror to me is like, if you ever seen Dylan's horror show, he thinks is like literally like going to the candy store, you know, and it's like, okay, you got Hershey's, Reese's, everything's like consumable, but I'm just like, that leaves me with something. I view horror very differently, so I'm kind of with you, Greg. We can finally agree for once.
Well, I mean, there's other books. Yeah, there's like, you know, you think you probably don't read horror books because immediately I think people think horror like as in like gory, gruesome,
or
horrible,
scary, jump.
Yeah, like horrible things. You know what I mean? But then it's like, I'm reading a book. I don't know if you guys are reading Lucky Devil. Have you guys read that? I'm enjoying that book. I mean, and that's like, you know, there you go, right there. That's
you just like, is your desk made out of long boxes?
I'm sitting on a stack of long boxes.
Every book we talked about, you've showed so far.
Well, to your point, I looked at it before we started rolling, and this week, I think I picked up 15 books, and 8 of them were at least slightly horror, like the last book you'll ever read, Lucky Devil. Like and probably because it's October. I think this was timed out that way. There's a lot of horror #1s that are coming out, or just horror series that were probably set up to be selling in October for sure. But yeah,
Also,
they're everywhere. They're everywhere.
Nice House on the Lake too, man.
Yeah,
that's I don't know if y'all read that, but hands down, that's right now. That's my read of the week right now, man. And
Roscoe, why don't you talk about that series? Because I know you kind of champion that a little bit.
I do. I love that.
Fantastic.
Book, I love the See, so I'm still new to the game, so but I think this book is a lot different than what I've read, where they've used on certain pages film talk, like a typed out of them talking, you know what I mean, instead of having pictures, and I thought I wasn't gonna like it, but I actually thinking this is pretty cool. They show the list of what people want, if you haven't read the first issue, but the middle of the book, that whole huge splash page of just social media and stuff. I think the way that they're doing this book is just phenomenal. I think it also ties in with a lot of stuff that's new age and stuff that a lot of stuff that we can relate to as well. Like I said, and it's just different too. Like I said, the dialogue from the cameras, the lists and stuff like that. But this latest issue is just through a curve. I mean, I feel like every single issue is just literally I'm just oh my God, what? I can't believe that just happened. And you guys read the last issue. If you haven't, that you didn't read. Not the newest one that came out, but
I'm
one
2 behind.
3.
2 behind right now.
2 behind. Oh man. Okay.
There's been 2.
4, right?
No spoilers, but there's been 2 major revelations in each of the last books. Nothing both of them were very cool, but it's nothing that completely changed the comic book. But he's pacing things out in this. To a degree, yeah, Roscoe. This last one, they did. You're right.
I literally was like, "Wait, what's going on here?"
They're still in the house. You know what I mean? It's not on fire yet. But yeah, the way he's pacing things out and the way he's taking time to focus on it's I think it's the best way to do it. Nick from Comic Culture, he made a really good point. The book is staying super fresh because at first there's just so many characters, but they're changing the perspective each issue. So not only do you get to know each character a little bit better, but you get a fresh perspective, which makes it more interesting and more engaging. So I think if it's this and Layla Starr, for me, it's the 2 best comic books of the year. They're very, very different, but that's as good
Layla
as
Starr. Would you consider that horror?
See, I was thinking about it. I would say no, but it's you could almost say maybe, but probably I would say no. What do you think?
I say it dapples in it, but I don't think it commits to the horror theme.
Yeah,
I think it commits more to the religion, to more of the religion and the self-discovery, and the philosophy of everything, rather than the actual rush and thrill. Because she's gonna come back, and it's told in the way that it's very in parts. You got part 1, part 2, part 3. That's the end of issue. Let's say 4.
Mm-hmm. I think the only thing that makes it only tiny bit horror is that how much it deals with the idea of death.
Right.
It doesn't look horrifying.
Exactly.
It's just they're talking about a morbid subject. It's more morbid than horror.
Magical realism, I guess that's a good word for it.
I'll take it.
But that's kind of thing is a lot of concepts that are introduced can definitely go that route, but I feel don't commit to it a whole lot of times. Which is also kind of why I'm thinking, how much will we enjoy horror comics, or are we enjoying them more nowadays? Kind of this new horror fad, because there's a lot of big 2 exhaustion recently, right? If you guys who are all here, you guys know how much I champion Marvel and DC, and how much I always talk about it. But there's a whole superhero exhaustion in the big 2. People are tired of events. People just want creative stories. People are tired of editorial canceling out writers, right? We saw that with Tom King. We saw that with Scott Snyder. We saw that with Hickman. I would even say we saw it with Nick Spencer to a degree. But are we enjoying horror much more because this is a newer concept, or are we enjoying it because it's a fresh breath air?
I always enjoy horror. So
just,
for me,
both.
Yeah. I didn't want to. If somebody else wanted to talk, but there's no doubt. Yeah, absolutely. But I totally agree with you. like I'm still getting into it and stuff like that, like I said, but I mean, I love all this stuff. Like we were just talking about Layla Starr. What about Carmen? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I mean, there's
they're very similar right there. They're
right.
Yeah, they're morbid. It's like morbid horror.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but it is a fad right now, and that's the thing. Everyone's on this train because, like you said, it could be that everyone's exhausted from from superheroes. But at the same time, I really think that again, a lot of these like smaller AWA, Aftershock, they're putting out some amazing books. I mean, great reads, great, and these are horror books too. These are great horror. Boom Studios. These companies are killing it. You know what I mean? And they're just amazing.
Good point, Fable.
To Fable's point, I was thinking about this ahead of time. Like one of the reasons why superheroes, like visuals, are important in any type of storytelling, but I think it's more important in the sci-fi, fantasy, and the superhero stuff and horror. Like the visuals of a horror movie or horror anything are super important, which is why Fable's dead on. It lends itself to the medium, lends itself to horror.
And Verno, to both of you guys, carry off both of you guys. Horror is a great way for newer readers because there's only one way to read the book. Like there are some, like you look at artists, let's say Riley Rossmo's like kind of like the extremist in it, where you don't really know how their panels will lay out, right? But you read a Batman book and you'll get some funky panels. You'll read an Avengers book. Sometimes that can be very jarring, or even like a lot of indie books, right? There are a lot of panels in there that the artists kind of play to their advantage and to more experienced readers, right? But a lot of times I've noticed in horror, you will get a lot of those easier panel grids or more of like those double spreads where you just read across the pages, or even you just go boom, boom, and then to the next page. Do you guys think that has anything to do with it and the format of how these stories are told?
Yeah, I agree with you. Formatting is crucial for especially for a new comic book reader, right? Like, my wife is new to the comic book reading game, and she's dabbling into
it. We know, Greg. Don't make her read Saga with the first book.
I didn't. But what's funny is we started a series and we did 3 episodes of she reads a comic book for the first time. She read Stray Dogs was the third one she did. As soon as we ended the video, she sat in this chair and read the rest of the trade paperback for no content, like just because she wanted to read it. And our dialogue, she was talking about how it reads easier than like the superhero aspect of the Moon Girl did, or I think the other one she read was Eat the Rich, which she liked a little bit more than Moon Girl. But the paneling is so. I think like when they can find a way to panel, because there's only so much you can do. I think with a horror book. I also think too. Indie publishers are growing and getting more exposure than they have in years past. And I think indie publishers are really allowing their creators to expand their, palette and try different things a lot more. You look at Scout, they have superhero book. They have a,
horror line,
8 different styles of books, and Behemoth Publishing is tending to go more onto the horror and the supernatural realm of books and stuff like that. So I think it's a little bit of both, a little bit of the big two fatigue, but I also think it's that in this day and age, indie publishers are able to be known more. Whether we've already talked about a couple Kickstarter anthologies, digital media, social media has allowed for them to expand their wheelhouse a little bit more, and then there's always a niche for horror comics. You talk about horror movies. If you look at a mystery box, I used to do mystery boxes before I even did comics, and most mystery boxes will have like your geek box and then they'll have a horror box. Like there's a market for it. And I think comic book publishers are realizing that there's a market for horror. That's why you have comic cons and there's horror cons. Like there are literally comic cons that are just for horror people.
It's almost more mainstream. Like, the MCU is so huge that superheroes have become obviously incredibly mainstream. But up until that boom, everybody was into, or I don't know about into, but who hasn't watched a bunch of horror movies? Or is it, I don't know too many people. I guess there are out there, but it's very, very mainstream. It's right. I feel you, but yeah. And then the other thing, to your point about new readers, it's so easy to jump onto a horror comic because you don't have to learn, you don't have to know 80 years of history. You can just jump right on. And I feel like, I don't feel like it's what everyone says, but I'm part of it, so I don't see it as much. Like there's more new readers now than
ever.
there has been in a long ass time. So I think that they're really pushing like, oh, we can just get it. It's easier for me to want to jump on a horror book than some Booster Gold miniseries coming out.
Oh,
I'm interested in that.
Bro, no, that I love that book.
I love it. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Booster Gold is one of my favorites.
There's no reason why you guys should not be reading Dan Jurgens' story. Booster Gold.
I get that.
Brandon, did we just become best friends?
Dragon, we did. Oh my god!
I love Booster Gold. So you tread lightly, Verno. You tread lightly. So.
Nothing against the guy, but it's an easier sell because you know that there's all that history. Like you know what I mean? And oh god, I gotta learn about Blue Beetle and this Booster guy.
Verno, icing on the cake. Me, John, and Greg all agree on something.
That doesn't happen. But what's funny is I just got into Booster Gold this summer. That was on my list to always read, and I crushed through the first volume this summer, and I'm crushing through volume 2. And so and it's easy one to get into because it's not a deep history, you know.
Right. He's kind of on his own.
He's very light history because he really wasn't used a whole lot outside of Dan Jurgens.
He was kind of a joke before the Dan Jurgens run.
I mean, I know him from the Justice League cartoon. You know what I mean? Right. I assume that's pretty much enough.
Superman? I know him from Death of Superman, and then I read the 1987 series that Jurgens did, and then Jeff Johns and Dan Jurgens collaborated to bring him back in. You know, so he got good treatment. It's just no one else. And then Justice League International by J.M. DeMatteis, who I can announce that he's going to be on the show in December 4th. So mark your calendars in advance. So that was awesome. That run is fantastic, and his relationship with Ted Kord in that book is very much referenced in Blue and Gold. But you don't need to read it to understand the reference. You just know that they're best friends.
Which that's also I love that in spoiler alert if you're not reading Superman 78 in issue 2 they have a Lex Luthor working at Kord Industries.
Oh wow.
Because he can't get a job, so he's in the mailroom at like Kord Industries, so they're bringing that in.
Sal was just talking about a show that's on the show earlier. Pandemic actually brought in a whole lot of readers. Which Sal? That's what I want to know because I might want to go back and rewatch.
You guys were just talking about it too. On this was that the pandemic has opened the door for a lot more readers because things were shut down.
And YouTubers.
Well, that's the thing I wanted to touch on what Greg was saying about how, like, you know, these smaller companies are becoming bigger because of social media. Well, like, you know, shows like ours that, you know, puts the stuff out and say, hey, we're reading this. And then it gets to someone and, you know, word of mouth, you know, then the thing is then everyone's reading that book, you know, like, but I got to say Behemoth, though, is very underrated. Mad Cave, some of those small companies are very underrated and they put out some awesome stuff. So, I don't.
It's still hard. Like when you're going through the books, it's almost like I don't even look at the Scout. I don't read Scout. Don't get into that. Let's just open up this whole other portal.
Right. And we're just talking about horror comics in general. We're not even like there's so many books right now, and if you're not reading something, that's okay. And I think a lot of people in this industry, whether you are in it for the spec game, you're in it for actually reading, there is a level of fear of missing out, whether you're missing out on a price tag, which that's not me, but if it's for some people, I totally understand that, you know. But if you're missing out on a good read, what's going on, Perry? How are you doing, brother? We got all the homies in here tonight. But I feel like you can always go back and revisit. Oh, okay, Absolute Comics. I love those guys. But I'll have to go back and rewatch it. But or watch it, not rewatch. Watch it. Sorry.
Who's reading Homesick Pilots? Anybody?
I haven't. Admittedly, I haven't started the second arc. I've been stacking the second arc. Yeah,
it's a great example of just how how diverse horror comics can be. There's mad horror elements to it, but there's all sorts of. It's a coming of age story. Yeah. There's the government involved. We're weaponizing ghosts. It's a wild story.
Yeah,
it's one of the coolest. I think horror books out there right now. It's super duper cool. Dan Waters.
So 90s. So freaking 90s. It's insane, man. I actually was digging that. I like Steph said, I'm waiting on the second arc. I'm waiting on trade, waiting on that. It's just so many books, you know what I mean? It's insane.
Right. So don't really feel like you're completely missing out. You have to waste all your money. Creators know that you can only buy so many books out there, and even if you're buying 20 books, that's a lot of money.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money. 20 books is, depending on how much your discount is, that's like anywhere from $80 to like $70 to $80, you know. And then you got to buy bags and boards, which are even more expensive because of the pandemic. they kind of use that material in their face masks. I guess that's what it was. So, just try not to buy into that FOMO. I know we all do it, but just like a friendly reminder, if you have a friend that's reading a book, right, you can kind of get the same enjoyment with them without actually reading it, you know. But you can always go back and reread it, you know, digitally or physically.
Yep.
Especially all these horror books, because a lot of them, right, kind of have the same plot.
It's easy to get caught up in that. Because, like, just think about it. I think, are all of us here reading Something's Killing the Children?
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't that have sucked if you missed out on it? You know what I mean? Like, everyone's talking about it for years. You're like, shit, man, I got to catch up on this thing. Like, I mean, the fear of missing out is real because I want to be part of the conversation. You know what I mean?
but also, look at where it hit, right? I mean, the hype for Something's Killing the Children probably didn't kick off till what, issue 8 or 9.
Yep.
Like the hype of people going back, which is why issues 2, 3, and 4 and 5 are still like expensive to get.
And 6. They're all
actually up until 12. They're all actually
because people were still sleeping on it, so it takes a while. So it's tougher. It's a weird mix because Something's Killing the Children wasn't meant to be an ongoing series originally. You know, and some of these minis aren't meant to be ongoing series, but because they get hyped. Like I doubt it Hotel was gonna thinking they were gonna do a second series of Hotel, but because it got hyped up and it is
the response,
and so it's a weird mix, like because you can miss out on stuff like you're saying, Verno. Like people are missing out, but it's the fear of missing out and getting those books that you can then own the floppies. That's the tough part sometimes because it doesn't kick off for a certain time. And then it's so hard to get those back issues because, well, they're a year old.
Roscoe,
hold the train.
Roscoe, hold my beer real quick.
I love that cover, man.
Doing hold my beer moments. I like that.
I got that one too. The FOC issue number 4. I love that cover. It's one of my favorites.
He did a signing. He did a signing at Third Eye, so I took full advantage.
This is one that I just found in my collection that it turns out I had no idea I had it until a buddy had it. It's like $1,000 cover or some crap, and I have no idea. I had no idea. I've got 2 of them.
Verno, I don't know if you noticed, but I had to like lean off the camera to grab my books. You're just out here just moving.
Yeah, right.
I literally had my computer sitting on this Gemini holder that had it in.
He's got that magic. He's got that magic short box
from Big Hero 6.
Out of. Coming up Harry Potter, you know Harry Potter when Hermione goes to the pocketbook and she get everything in there. That's what you got, but in
an
a short
infinite
box,
backpack.
You know what I mean?
I got this one. Oh, would you say Lucky Devil? Oh yeah. Oh, huh? What's oh yeah. Okay.
Surrounded.
Okay.
It's a magician.
Kind of moving on to the next bit because we've been talking about horror comics about an hour and 15 minutes. I know I did want to speak on ASM ending. See, it's not a horror book. It can be a horrible book at times, but it didn't really feel that way because there were good things. And I know I was pretty negative on it, but I was also pretty positive on it. And Herm just had a really good show talking with Sam Tangled Web kind of about it. But real quick, for those of you who did read it, first off, what did you like about it? What did you like about it? Not the fact that it's over. I don't want to hear that, but what did you like? Verna, did you read it?
Me?
I was gonna say I'm a Paula Bueller. Didn't read it.
You didn't see, but here's the thing. You say that for one book. Bueller just says that on the monthly comic book reviews. Because
I know.
So Brandon, you can just put us all backstage, and you and Herm can just.
All right.
Right. I did. Who did read it?
That's what I was afraid of, man.
Just me and Herm. All right, so it's not going to be that big of a seg. Okay, bye, Roscoe. Herm, what did you think? Or what did you like, Herm?
All right, fellas, let's do it.
Or, we can save this for another time and just keep talking.
No. Pretend we're not here. Continue.
We're still listening.
This is what I was afraid of. Like we're the only ones talking.
Entertain us, Herm. Entertain us.
You just talking about this last issue that came out?
The run in general, like the whole
1 through 75. We need it all. Give me details.
We're gonna be here all night, man.
Herm, question: why do you think? I think with King, people started to give him a lot of shit in his Batman run was around the wedding. That's when I saw a lot of people jumping off board. What would you say with Spencer's? What do like the moment people are hating? What was a significant moment as to why people have a grudge against his run?
I think because it started off pretty good. Like if you read it from the beginning, it was a lot of fun. It was like I think where people did start getting mad is the Haunted arc. I don't know if you guys with the point something and all that. Even though the point issues are really good. Yeah. A point HU for the Hunted. The Hunted issues, a lot of people were saying were better than the actual series going on. And I think people starting to get turned off after that series right there. That's the turning point. It happened kind of early in the 30s. You know what I mean? What was it? Not even 20s, in the mid-20s and stuff like that.
Mid-20s.
Yeah.
30s was 2099.
I think people were impatient with the Kendrick because he talked about it literally in the Free Comic Book Day into the first issue. It was like Kendrick, and then it's like the Nick Spencer run was an expansion. His whole it ended up being his whole run where he just stretched out a lot of ideas that he had in those first couple of issues of Free Comic Book Day one, the first one. He told us everything he was gonna do in those issues, and instead of like doing it arc by arc, he just like did one arc and didn't finish it. Did another arc and then didn't finish it. Did another arc and then didn't finish it. And I think that's what's starting to piss people off. You know, in that
all the dangling plot threads.
So why did that not piss you off then, Herm?
Because it sounds like Benjamin Percy's taking notes from him because that's what he's doing. Sorry, go on.
It didn't piss me off because I'm patient. I'm not like a lot of people are impatient now. They want, like you guys were talking about these short series that's happening, that people are buying the short series because they're happy about that. They don't want to go the long haul anymore. They don't want to take the journey. You know what I mean? So
that's the culture. I mean, there's an impatience in the culture. We're right now on demand.
Right.
Yeah, everything is instantaneous.
Like everybody praises the Claremont run, including me. But look at what they did. I think part of what makes old comics so cool, specifically the Claremont X-Men run, is the way that they weaved story plots in and then finally paid it off like years later. But yeah, when you're there in the moment, it's not so fun. Though. Right.
I don't think people will like if that was happening now. I don't even know if people have the patience to go through a whole
exactly. I think you're spot on.
You know what I mean?
Right. No, I'm with you, Herm. I'm with you 100% on that. What I liked about his run is it played off a lot of the moments, or brought back a lot of the moments from the 80s from Spectacular Spider-Man by Peter David, or even what David Michelinie did. Like there are a lot of moments between Tombstone and Joe Robertson. Right. There was a lot of stuff with James Jonah Jameson. That was like freaking right from Michelinie and David, you know? So I really appreciated that. Except when he tried to modernize it, it missed its mark. It was like you did your research. You were here, and then just the last part, you fell off. And I kind of felt like that with a lot of his plots in the narrative and a lot of his mini arcs, is you just didn't stick the landing, and then COVID hit, distribution hit. You knew that the editorial was speeding you up. You didn't need to have every villain in there. Now you have 3 different artists drawing a 24-page book, and you're doing an event that could have been in your main story. So I think there's like a discrepancy between him and editorial, and then him reshaping his story and adapting to that.
The only part of Nick Spencer's run I read was Sinister War. That's the only thing I hopped on was to read the Sinister War because I was like, I like these villains.
I hated the new costume, the social media costume that they tried, like that whole that was horrible. But I'm with you, Greg. Though I did read Sinister War, and I enjoyed it until it ended. Like I did not like the ending. I was not a fan of the way it ended. So,
to that commenter's point, I think part of it was there was a trust in Claremont. If Spencer came in, I don't know what he did before this, but if he had a pedigree and everybody trusted, he's going to take care of us. Like people did with Hickman's entire X-Men run. Like he's going somewhere because he had that trust. Claremont had that trust, which allowed the patience.
Right. And even Hickman, I would say, I don't think we're going to know until like everything's over, whether or not Hickman stuck the landing.
Right.
Or whether or not like this might be a thing that we look at 10 years from now, and if they're still in Krakoa, right? I think then that's a success on Hickman's end.
Well, either way, it's going to be impactful. There's going to be a legacy, whether or not how fun and how good it was are kind of two different debates. And you're right. We won't know until 3 more issues of Inferno how much we're going to get. But that's
in the now. And then I would say in the now, because I'm not going to say Hickman's going to come back. I know I've said it before. I think that he will have a hand. And I know that he has set the tone for later, but it's still not his sole vision when other people are going to be writing it for him. It won't be 100% his control to be his influence, just not his control. Kind of like when Claremont left the X-Men. It was like, okay, his character is just under a different voice. But then again, you look back years from now, Claremont was very successful. And I think that think that Hickman, you're really not going to know until in hindsight. So that's just really my 2 cents. What's going on, Nicole? Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. And a lot of people saying that's not Nicole. That's Nicole right there. But I wouldn't say Hickman. If Hickman's making you sad, I would say give it. I would say I don't want to say give it, but let it end. Let it end. Let it end. You know. But that's really my thoughts on X-Men. I know that we can have like a whole segment on X-Men, and Amazing Spider-Man, but this whole show was for horror comic books, and we achieved that. So let's spotlight everyone. Let the people know where you are. Let me get back over here. How about handsome homie Roscoe? You go first. Where can we find you?
You can catch me over on my channel. It's called Geek Out with Roscoe. I'm actually going to be putting up a video tonight of an unboxing. I got an AOK. I won a giveaway, and I also got a comic book from a guy on the panel here that I was so pumped to get. Thank you again, Bearded. You're awesome. And
that was me.
Yeah.
Who was it?
I was like, oh, what?
Let's get a mod to drop his link. Let's get some mods to drop his link.
So, and I just reached 200 subs on YouTube. Woohoo! I'm going to be dropping a video for a 250 giveaway. So be on the lookout for that. On Saturdays, you can catch me on Spine Ticks at 11 o'clock Eastern, or 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's just a lot of shenanigans and good times over there. And also on Mondays, 8 o'clock, you can catch me either on my channel or on Cardboard Crazies. Thank you, Fable. You're the man. Appreciate you, dog. And we do Between the Lines, where we do a show where we hang out and we draw. So
there you go.
Yeah. So come check me out.
Check him out, guys. Sub up to Roscoe. He's worth it. Roscoe is one of the biggest supporters in the community. He's everywhere. So let's show him some love that he shows everybody else. We got. Look at this guy.
How you doing? What's up? The name's Verno. You know it's true because it says it right there. But from the Cerebros podcast, just moved to YouTube just a couple of months ago, and it's awesome. You guys are having a lot of fun over here, and I've been noticing. So I came over to hang out with you guys. It's way cooler. It's way cooler over here. But I do weekly non-spoiler reviews. I have one up today on a lot of the books that came out this week. So check that out. And then every single week I have on guests from across the interwebs. I have and we talk comics. I got a fun one with Rock and Robbie from last week. We talk Inferno. We break down Amazing Spider-Man and a bunch of other books. I got John from John's Comics with Kids coming this week. We're breaking down Immortal Hulk next week with my buddy. We're going to go through the final issue. And then I have Dave from Comic Book Herald coming to break down Inferno #2 later in the month, and a bunch of other cool stuff. So come check it out, man. It's a new channel. Oh, and also I'll say we're giving away these 2 horror series on the channel. You just gotta go. That's right. The Dollhouse Family and Basket Full of Heads, which we talked about earlier. So there's not that many subscribers. There's not that many commenters. So go comment on some stuff, and you will have a super good chance of winning some books when we reach 200 subscribers.
Yeah, you guys. Before Verno gets famous from hanging out with Robbie, definitely do that. Definitely sub him up. He is worth it. I checked out his video today. It's fantastic. Big shout out to Verno. This guy.
Wait, we're supposed to get famous by hanging out with Robbie,
right?
We're supposed to
that did not help. I lost subscribers.
I mean, I tried getting famous by hanging out with John, and it didn't work, you know.
Yeah, it never works.
Man, Chaos is right. We should be talking about romance comics more often.
February, guys. February.
No, do it in December. Why not? Right. Anyways, Bearded Comic Bro. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter at that name. Drop interviews every Monday, Wednesday. It's random content, whatever I want. So last week we did a Who You Gonna Cast episode. This week was showing off some of my favorite DC comic covers and trying to get other people to do that. And every Friday night I do a game show on my channel with my wife called Name That Character, and I think we're like episode 55, which is crazy that she's put up with these shenanigans that long. So but yeah, just come hang out. Bearded Comic Bro YouTube. Fable just dropped that link because he's a boss. So yeah,
Fables, man.
Hells yeah. Thank you, Fable.
So Bearded, he's worth it. Let's get him to 1K sooner than later. I believe you're up 760.
I'm at 725 right now, so I'm 25 away from my 750 giveaway. So that's still going on. If you guys want to enter in the 750 subscriber giveaway, just find that video and comment. And once I hit that,
appreciate you being here. Appreciate everybody being here so last minute. And then this handsome guy.
Station. Thanks for having me, guys. This was fun, even though it's for a little bit for me. But yeah, tomorrow I have a small haul video tomorrow, 4 p.m. Because I have my show with Sam today. That's why I'll do it tomorrow. I'm gonna have that going on, and then next week, talking about Spider-Man, me and Sam's gonna cover One More Day. So
nice.
That's the series that Nick Spencer was trying to wreck on, and Joe Quesada and Marvel didn't let him. So that's why they kicked him out. So we're gonna cover that next week. We didn't get to talk too much about that here in the show. Maybe in the future with Brandon, but we'll talk more about that in the future. But that's what we're covering next week. I have a Comic Time video popping up eventually or something like that. But this Monday, I got the Amazing Collected Edition show, which I'm doing with Fargate. We're talking about omnibuses, collected editions, what's coming out for this month, what you can order ahead of time. That way you can get a good discount and guarantee your books. Because if you wait for the last moment when they come out, just like variants, just like when Fable, you're bringing Fables for showing new books that's gonna sell out if you don't get it right away. It happens with actually these omnibuses, which is amazing. These things are like not the cheapest things, and people get them in bulks and it sells out. So if you want to do that, check us out Monday. See what's coming out new. See how we do things in there, and of course we review our books there and everything. So once a month we do that. The Amazing Collected Edition show on Monday, and so far that's what I got. Bad Batch, Whiplash Wednesdays. Always check us out. Missing Link. Fat Chat Blank Favorite Show will return eventually in the evening. Prime time. So look out for that. My man, his channel's right here. Comic Kings, Brandon, one of our newest members of Whiplash Wednesday. Thanks for doing this with us. Thanks for being with us. PCB Army, Bad Batch, TM Nerdy, Nick Comic Culture, Jamal Cinema, all those guys. Check them all out. I'm sure Brandon will have the links down below. We all do. And boom. That's what we got going.
Big Herm is everywhere. This guy.
Big Herm, easily the most lovable, the most lovable member of the whole comic book community, right there.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
There's nothing to hate on her, but other than like the background is so colorful, it makes my eyes hurt. But Herm, we gotta work.
The next one's the sexiest member of the comic book community.
I would catch a grenade for you, Mr. Bruno Mars.
Brandon,
Link.
The movie star.
Yes. You can catch me with this guy hosting right now every Wednesday. Crisis on Infinite Rants. Every week, different topic to debate about. We also do Archives. What's the next episode, Brandon?
Death Metal's coming out this Friday.
Okay. Yes.
And then Young Avengers is the following.
Yes. Besides that, like you heard Herm say, all these wonderful gentlemen on the panel. Bad Batch. Love you guys. What's a backlog, bro? And Brandon.
So you're passing it to me now. I'm not as good looking as any of these people, but I think I'm about a 7. But anyway, Creator's Corner. Creator's Corner is most popular show, so I'd like to plug that. We have a fully booked year up until 2022 of guests. So just stay tuned for those announcements. I'll drop them on Instagram first. Make sure you guys sub to everybody on the Bad Batch. We're closing out true Bad Batch style today. I know it's a substitute, but hey, man, we did a good job with it tonight. Big shout out to everybody for popping through. You guys are all worth it. Station to you guys. Mondays is a weekly wrap up with myself and Bryce. We usually have creators on who were previously on Creators Corner coming in. So make sure you guys come in and watch that, because we also do a lot of new comic book reviews, and that is a great show. And it has been, the new time slot has been so rewarding to us, and you guys have been so rewarding to the channel. So thank you guys so much for that. And then Crisis on Infinite Rants every Wednesday. So that's really, I try to stick to those 3 time slots, and then Creators Corner whenever it is. And then I think I have another show. I just don't remember what I do here, but oh wait, I don't want to do that. Let's go back here.
I'm finished.
Let's see.
What else, Herm? No.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we got
Herm,
Monday.
We know you have more.
Yeah, so we got big shout out to Dave for being in here, even though you have internet issues. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you, brother, for being here. But yeah, we got Monday's weekly wrap up, Wednesdays Crisis on Infinite Rants, Fridays is archives, and then we drop Creators Corner whenever that is. Danny and Dan Wouters are going to be the next guests. Patrick Gleason in the pipeline. So we got a lot coming for you guys from the channel. You're going to see a lot of new people on Comics Kings. We got Michael for the Love of Comics over on TikTok and Instagram. We got Bryce Hillbilly Comics. We got Missing Link. That's the crew right there. That's the crew. Make sure you guys sub with the Bad Batch. We kind of ran down the schedule earlier, but make sure you guys go check out those replays. Thank you all for joining us. Oh, Dismay's here. Yo, what's going on, Dismay? But yeah, catch the rewind. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to the channel if you like what you're seeing. No reason not to. Station, you guys. Happy Whiplash Wednesday. Have a great rest of your night.
Peace.